Okay, members. Welcome to today's committee meeting of the AERC, and we are now in open session, so I'll proceed through the agenda. So, agenda item number 1, which is apologies. I have received one apology, and that is from John Stewart. I'm not aware of any others. Are other members indicating? No. Okay, we'll move to agenda item number 2, which is declarations of interest, and I can remind members that they are obliged to declare any relevant financial or other interests before taking part in relevant committee proceedings. So can I ask at this stage, do members have any interests to declare? No. Okay. Agenda item number 3, which is draft minutes, and I refer members to draft minutes of the meeting held on the 3rd of December 2024, which are page 6 of their meeting packs. Can I ask if members are content with the draft minutes? Yep. Okay. Content. Thank you, members. There we go. Agenda item number 4, which are matters arising. I think probably I'll just raise at this stage, thank Declan for his service to the committee. I understand he may come back onto it, but Pat has now become the vice chair of the committee, and my understanding is that due to assembly procedures, that means that Declan is no longer a member of the committee. That may change whenever a motion goes through the House in terms of committee membership. So that's just to note that particular point. Agenda item number 5, which is arrangements for Assembly members' participation in international and interparliamentary bodies. The briefing on a scoping paper, which is at page 15, starting with the Secretariat's briefing page. And I would invite Shane to address the committee at this stage in relation to the paper.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, just to outline the background to this proposed topic. So the Assembly's current corporate strategy includes an objective to develop and implement an interparliamentary and international strategy to support the Assembly in terms of building relationships with other parliaments and increasing the Assembly's influence across these islands and internationally. As part of that process, which the Assembly Commission has been taking forward, a gap was identified in potentially the need for an Assembly body or committee to have a responsibility at a political level where the Assembly engages with some of these other international bodies and is required to provide like a policy position on issues. So that was the background to it. The committee got, members will recall, got a comparative research paper provided at its last meeting, and that identified there's quite a range of these bodies, but the focus really would be on those bodies which might require the Assembly to communicate a position on issues, and then that raises the issues around how the Assembly would identify and agree and establish a position or a corporate view on issues. And then other issues like what level of support the members representing the Assembly would get in advance of attending, and who would attend, and reporting back arrangements, all of those types of issues. At the moment, that's very ad hoc, so there's not a systematic approach to that. And so that was the focus of this scoping work. And members will see there's a table at Annex B, which identifies 3 bodies in particular where that kind of remit would apply: the EU UK Parliamentary Partnership Assembly, the Committee of the Regions UK Contact Group, and the Council of Europe Congress of Local and Regional Authorities, and the Interparliamentary Forum. So those bodies, and the table sets out kind of issues that the bodies in the past, policy issues, have considered. Quite a range of issues have been considered to date. And then there's also, members will recall at the last meeting there was discussions around, in light of the research, and around how the Assembly might take a kind of a more systematic, strategic approach to engaging with these bodies, and that's where this work has came from. So there's a draft terms of reference. I'll just draw members' attention to it, page 65. And that explains that the overall purpose of the review will be to examine how the Assembly could take a coordinated, systematic and strategic approach to engaging with those particular interparliamentary or international bodies where, as I say, the Assembly might be required to provide a policy position, and also consider what role this committee might play in that regard in terms of helping to achieve the applicable objectives in the Assembly's overall strategy for international relations, which the Commission is taking forward. So the draft terms of reference, particularly at page 66, if members just take move to page 66, I'll just want to highlight the potential outcomes and the aims of the review. So you'll see there, so the bullet point at page 66, the identification of those parliamentary international bodies which with which the Assembly engages and may require an Assembly policy position to be conveyed on particular issues. The establishment of processes and mechanisms through which the Assembly may develop and agree policy positions on issues or corporate messages which require to be communicated to identified bodies. Confirmation of the role to be played by MLAs appointed to represent the Assembly on the identified bodies. The methods of identifying and appointing the representatives. And also as a confirmation of the sources and level of support to be provided to the members representing the Assembly on those bodies, and then finally an approach to formal reporting of the Assembly's engagement with the identified bodies, including sharing and applying the information and learning from that participation, and then the output would really be a committee report for the Assembly's consideration. So that's the kind of the background. Wouldn't be a huge piece of work, I don't think, Chair, but something that the committee may consider is valuable to undertake.
Okay, thank you, Shane. Could I ask the members have any particular questions on this item for the clerk? Okay, so can I ask members, are they content to proceed with the review of the arrangements for the Assembly members' participation in interparliamentary and international bodies?
This is just to
populate
this list here and get us the answers around resources and how much.
Yeah. I think it's just item number 5, which is seek agreement around the terms of reference.
Yeah.
First of all, so are members content with us doing that point? Yeah.
Indeed.
And we'll also be checking on procedures and whether or not an Assembly motion is required in terms of formatting. But that's something for our Secretariat. Okay, members, thank you. We move now to agenda item number 6, which is the selection and prioritisation of topics for the AERC work programme. Could I refer members to the Secretariat briefing at page 69 and subsequent other correspondence between the pages of 70 and 151. So at this stage I would invite the clerk again to introduce this item. Members will have also noted on your table as a briefing note from the meeting with FM and DFM. Following our last meeting, it was received via email a desire that the committee would meet earlier with the First and Deputy First Minister. That was attempted by the committee. Both the Chair and both myself and the Vice Chair made ourselves willing and able to accommodate a meeting. Unfortunately, that was not able to be accommodated. Also, the meeting was meant to happen last week, but due to the storm, it was pushed back and happened yesterday. You'll have received a note on that particular meeting, and at this stage, I will ask Shane to run us through his briefing before we open it up to members.
Okay, Chair, and I shall ask Nick to speak on my behalf on this one, Chair. Thank you.
He was present.
Okay.
Yes, that's right. Thank you, Chair. So just on page 69, members, is the updated briefing paper on this agenda item. I won't go all the way back to last March, but basically where we got to at the last meeting was that at that point we had not received anything from the Executive Office in terms of their suggestions. So the committee had agreed in October to write to them again. Then at its meeting on the 3rd of December, a proposal was made for the committee to agree to wait to consider any topics the TEO were going to bring to the committee. Those topics were actually received shortly after the meeting, and as the Chair has indicated, yesterday there was a meeting between FM, DFM, the Chair, the Deputy Chair, and a number of officials to talk through the 7 suggestions that the TEO had actually brought to the committee in terms of forward work topics. Those 7 suggestions are now in the table of potential topics, which starts at page 70 of your meeting pack, and those particular items start at number 15. So there were 7 items there. Just to remind members, also at its meeting on the 3rd of December, the committee did make 2 decisions on topics that it decided not to select and prioritise. And for your reminder, those topics were topic number 2, which was designations and the appointment of the First Minister and Deputy First Minister, and topic number 7, to build on existing work carried out by AARC in relation to member designations and cross-community votings. So you will see on the table that those items have been sort of whited out, because obviously at this stage the committee has decided not to move forward with those. Chair, I don't know if you want to give any more detail of the meeting yesterday, or whether you're happy for me to run through what FM and DFM said.
I'm happy for you to read through the
Thank you. So, yes.
It's just a factual question. So, is our current position that Annex E is a table of proposed areas of work, all of which anything that is not whited out or faded is still a live potential subject of inquiry for us? Is that right? Okay, thanks. That's all I'm going to check.
That is right.
Sorry, excuse me, Johnny, just to come in on Matthew's point, I'm not absolutely clear on that. Unfortunately, I missed the meeting where these decisions were made, and I'm just wondering, could I get a bit of an update in regard to those issues that have been effectively blanked out here?
Yes, at the last committee meeting, 2 proposals were made to for the committee to select and prioritise topic number 2, which is designation and appointment of First Minister and Deputy First Minister, and the work around that. The committee divided and decided not to prioritise and select that work topic. There was then a further proposal for topic number 7, which is to build on existing work carried out by AARC in its last form in relation to member designations and cross-community voting. And again, committee divided and decided not to prioritise and take that topic forward at this point.
Fair enough. Through the chair, sorry, Michelle. My understanding on the report I got back on the committee meeting was that those issues were simply put in abeyance until such times as the meeting with FM-DFM took place. So, am I wrong in that, or is that the way the discussion developed?
Well, the minutes of the last meeting contradict that and say that the committee decided on those 2 topics not to prioritise and select at this point. And then a third proposal was made to pause on making decisions on any of the TEO topics until they had been received, and then a meeting with FM and DFM had taken place. So committee agreed with that proposal. The other proposals were to take forward topics 2 and 7, and committee decided not to do that.
Yeah. And I appreciate what you're saying. My position would be, and our position would be, that those topics should be up for discussion, and the understanding of the Sinn Féin members at the committee meeting that day was that simply they were being held back until such times as that meeting took place. And now that meeting with FM-DFM has taken place, I mean, it would be my view that those issues should be put back onto the forward work programme.
So I'll take Michelle first before.
No, I was just going to echo Pat's understanding of what happened at the last meeting. I think it was very clear that from representations made that people did not want to agree any priorities until we had a submission from TEO, which then followed the meeting. I know minutes don't capture all of the discussion. They'll capture, of course, the wording of the 2 proposals, but I think what Pat's describing is very much the understanding that I would have, and I'm sure others do as well, that there was a conditionality, if you like, that we wanted to hear back from TEO. We hadn't at the point that the first vote was taken. That has happened subsequently, and I think it's completely valid to have those back on the table now in the context that that meeting has taken place, and the submission, the written submission from TEO is also followed.
If I may, Chair, I'll just to add my I'm not entirely clear if any person watched the proceedings back. I think you'd need to be kind of an expert in kind of Mandarin court processes to have divined a very specific action from what happened. I don't know how or why the Sinn Féin representatives didn't understand the position that was taken. In any case, I think Pat is saying that the Sinn Féin's position now is that they want the topics in Annex E to be readmitted to consideration. I would support that.
Okay, members, so I get the feel of the room. I suppose probably what Nick has tried to do and what the Secretariat have done is accurately reflect procedurally where the committee stand.
And I think I have to say, can you say,
No,
it wasn't an easy process.
If you would just let me finish. So what I would like Nick to maybe set out, there is procedural ways in which if members did want to re-examine some of the topics that have been taken off the list for that to happen. So I'll let Nick set that out. Obviously we can only do what we're mandated and procedurally correct in doing so today, but I'll hand that to Nick at this stage.
Thanks, Chair. Committees can rescind decisions that they have made via proposals. However, there is a process that needs to be undertaken to do that. That process is that notice needs to be given that a specific agenda item onto a future meeting to rescind previous decisions made by the committee is required, and that notice can come from any member in writing to either the chair or to the secretariat of the committee. That would then be put on as a substantive agenda item at the next meeting because the agreed minutes show that decisions were taken, so the committee would then have to agree to rescind those decisions. But the committee guide, which you can find on the members' portal, and that comes from Erskine May, the process by which that happens is notice to rescind, which a member can provide, and then that would then come to a future meeting.
Thank you for appreciate that clarity. Can I confirm that if there is another mechanism, for example, if we were to put another proposal, there's a proposal there at number 10 perhaps, and then include also what's in 2 and 7 in terms of what specifically has been asked, that would be an alternative proposal, and that would be a fresh proposal to the committee today that we could pass.
Nick, I know we did have some discussion about what would constitute procedural correct means by doing so. Do you want to?
Yes, so obviously Matthew's proposal, which is there, as you say, is topic number 10, is more wide-ranging than the specifics of topic 2 and 7. Chair, perhaps if Matthew would like to expand a little bit on what that means.
Thank you. I suppose it is deliberately more, and thank you to Michelle for pointing to Proposal 10. Whenever we sent in Proposal 10, I suppose it was designed to be an expansive enough suggestion that it would allow us to answer the question that I think lots of people out there now understand to be what they mean by the word reform, which is one or more changes to the processes laid out in the Northern Ireland Act, which would have the effect of ensuring greater executive sustainability, i.e. making it less easy for the executive to collapse. Now, there are a number of different proposals. I think both different parties, certainly our party and the Alliance Party and other parties in the past have talked about different ways of improving that. There's, for example, yesterday we had a motion, the Alliance Party had an amendment. There are other academics who have put forward proposals as to how you might change the rules. Some are, so I suppose that is what it is designed to capture. So that's one common meaning of the word assembly reform. Clearly there are many, when we've talked about assembly reform, that could mean anything from reform of how opposition works to what we've been talking about earlier on in terms of participation in international groups. But just to be specific, what our party suggestion is that we look at specific reforms which have the effect of ensuring greater sustainability, including making it harder for the executive to collapse, some of which was already in the ministers, the MEPOC bill, which was passed in, I think, around about 2019-20. So that's...
Chair, can I, in the last meeting, you, with me,
yes.
agreed to 2 and 7. It's 2 options that this committee would explore. Sure. Would you be comfortable that those areas of exploration would be included under?
Yes, through the chair. I think that's a reasonable suggestion, and I think the purpose of doing of us drawing it the way is to provide a mechanism to examine those things.
So I suppose probably what my point of clarity would be, going to Nick, I understand that with Matthew's explanation of his proposal, with the inclusion of 2 and 7, wasn't it? Actually means that from a procedural point of view that it can't actually be taken at this meeting. It would have to receive a rescinding motion to allow then that to come forward. And I'm just going to check to my right that I'm right on that, but that's what I think.
I'm not re-proposing those two standalone, as was the vote the last time.
Yes, so
I'm asking Matthew if he would like to amend his number 10 proposal to include, just reference those 2 areas, not 2 and 7, just what the content is.
I suppose I totally understand that, and I think probably that explanation and that inclusion means that it can't be considered at today's meeting, but I'm going to check to my right from a procedural perspective.
Thank you, Chair. I think perhaps procedurally a way forward here is members could today agree that Matthew's proposal could be subject to some further scoping work that the Secretariat could capture to try and capture everything that you have mentioned.
Yeah.
That can be done now and can then be brought sort of with a fuller Secretariat paper to the next meeting, and members can then make a decision on that. In the meantime, there could still also be notice given regarding topics 2 and topic 7 in those decisions, and it would mean that potentially at the next meeting all of that could be covered, as in if members chose that they did want to rescind those decisions, to make it part of potentially topic number 10, that is an option.
Back to Michelle first.
Just getting clarity from you on this. So I think there's, I guess, a question here that we want not to be seen to be delaying any further in terms of our prioritisation on this committee. I think that was certainly something that members were concerned about, that we're pushing things out into the long grass. So I think any progress that we can make today in terms of determining our priorities should be the first priority today. Would it be correct to say that if we agreed today on a list of priorities, then there's a discussion on what the content and the specifics of the work is going to be? And is that something we can have a discussion on today, or does that again require us to move into the next meeting?
Our normal procedure would be, as we have done with the interparliamentary piece of work, committee agreed at its last meeting that it was a topic it wished to take forward. Secretariat then did some research and brought forward terms of reference for the actual piece of work, which committee then agreed today. So that would be the standard committee way in which we would tease out the various aspects of the proposal of topic number 10, so that committee then understand exactly what it is that we are looking at. So I'm not sure, Chair, that it is actually kicking it down the road as such. It's more that our standard procedure would be that we would come back with a fuller paper that included terms of reference and specifics on what the committee were deciding that work
Finish the point.
Yeah, that's
your
fine.
mind. Sorry, Matthew, I'm interrupting. So then, just to be absolutely clear, we could do this proposal today, which would be number 10, and simultaneously I could put the notice to rescind the previous, so we can do both of those things today, so that formally brings 2 and 7 back into the mix without any concerns around the propriety of the procedural correctness.
Chair again. Yes,
Okay.
10 today, we can. The committee can decide that it wishes to progress that. 2 and 7 would require an agenda item on the next meeting. So decisions to rescind couldn't happen today because
the
notice is required.
I could put the notice today that I would like to rescind that, and that would be progressed then.
I think it has to be in written format.
Okay, but I could do that today, is
Yes.
what I mean. Yeah.
Just on one point, in terms of progressing 10, it is advisable that the committee would agree to commission a scoping paper so that the committee knows exactly what's involved in 10 before, so that could be a without prejudice decision, you know, that it
I'll go to Matthew, sorry.
Thank you, Chair, and your patience and forbearance is welcome, and that of the committee clerks. The people watching this will be what we were talking about 2, 10 and 7, and they'll be completely baffled. But the proposal number 10 in my name does, as I said, it was deliberately drawn so that it could include various parts of some of the things that are in 2 and 7, and I think I would be keen, not just kind of relaxed about those. I think they could be included, whatever the specific mechanism for rescinding and including them. And I would just for the purposes of putting it on the record, there's an NI Affairs Committee report which was published late last year, I think in November, sorry, not last year, 2023, which included, it talks about the effectiveness. I mean, it's a broader report on the effectiveness of the Good Friday Agreement institutions, but there's a long section of potential reforms to the institutions, and that includes kind of necessarily some of the questions around how cross-community voting works and designation without prejudice to any outcome and any of that. So I think that I would think that would be a sensible inclusion in the scope of number 10. But obviously that's for the Secretariat staff to investigate.
Okay, so members, just so we're going to try to pull this all together. So firstly, on the two items that we can't take decision on today, which a member has already suggested that they will supply a rescinding motion for the next committee meeting. That's business that will take place. There's no formal vote here, but that can take place outside. The other, what I'm sensing, was a proposal was for number 10 from Matthew. Do I have any other proposals, Michelle?
Can I just get some clarity just in relation to the amount of work that this committee can do at any one time? Because obviously I'm not really clear as to what we've agreed. Item 5 in relation to arrangements for participation in international and interparliamentary bodies. I mean, is that going to be a piece of work that is a standalone piece of work, or will that be working in parallel with what's being suggested here today? Although I'm obviously not happy with the proposal, and I do think that these are I suppose topics which are before elsewhere as opposed to in this room, and I think that there are other topics which have been suggested by the TEO, which are probably shorter pieces of work, but actually could be meaningful and actually make a difference to the work of this place, as opposed to having a sort of a broader political discussion. But I suppose that's where members feel that we should be going that tunnel we should be going down, and that's if we wish to do that, that's fine. But I do think that we do have a specific piece of work that we could be doing here that actually does make a difference, and I would be suggesting that we do look at the list that falls within our remit that came from TEO. But going back to my original question, it's really about the allocation of time that this committee has to pursue pieces of work, and resources as well.
So could I, in answering that question, maybe Nick would also elaborate on the three particular areas. I think there was two potentially that was more of a priority in looking at the TEO issues, just what they would entail as well, given your initial. I think we would have to agree a further scoping exercise on them if the committee was minded to take them forward, but you maybe want to outline the sense of the conversation.
Yes, Chair. So just moving to the meeting yesterday with FM and DFM, and again, we're now on to page 74 of your meeting pack, which lists the topics that TEO suggested. There were 3 topics. The Secretariat did a sort of top-line feasibility of all of those. There are 4 topics that don't fall within the remit of this committee, so I won't go into those ones. There are explanations within the table. However, there are 3 topics that would fall within the remit of this committee. The first one is an examination of how the Assembly engages on cross-cutting executive strategies. And at the meeting yesterday, the Chair asked FM and DFM just to provide a bit more detail on that. It was clear during discussions that FM and DFM did see this as a priority and an important piece of work in the way that departments are perhaps becoming less siloed, and it is more cross-cutting and executive-wide decisions that are being taken, yet the Assembly, perhaps in the way that its scrutiny is physically set up, could find it difficult to deal with that. So certainly FM and DFM indicated that would be, I think, their top priority. In terms of the other 2, the second one, which does fall to this committee, is number 19, again on page 75 there, and that's the development of a process and guidance on the handling of Westminster scrutiny instruments, or SIs, which include a role for the Assembly. This is increasingly becoming an issue for the Assembly, where SIs that have some sort of action or bearing on Northern Ireland as a jurisdiction are actually being discussed, deliberated and agreed on in Westminster and not here. FM and DFM did acknowledge that's a more technical piece of work and perhaps not quite as wide-ranging as the cross-cutting one, but again they would see that as a priority. perhaps not as high a priority as the cross-cutting piece of work. And then finally, topic number 21, the last one on the table, which falls within AARC, that's a review and assessment of the effectiveness of all party groups. That's potentially quite a wide-ranging piece of work, and would also, I think, involve liaison with the Committee on Standards and Privileges, who actually govern the rules around all party groups. Chair, I think I'm right in saying that of the three, that would be the least of priority that FM and DFM indicated yesterday.
And then on Michelle's particular point about the number of topics, etc., committee time.
Yeah, Chair, well, obviously the more work the committee takes on, the more meetings the committee will require to have in terms of taking evidence from witnesses and stakeholders. But the committee could decide to, say, pick 3 or 4 topics, and after scoping work's undertaken, so that the committee's clear on what's involved in each. So my suggestion would be the committee agrees to undertake scoping work first on whatever topics it's interested in, and then decides whether it's going to proceed as a second step, decides whether it's going to proceed with a review. But if it did agree 3 or 4 review topics, it could then decide which of those it prioritises first in terms of timing as well.
Okay, sorry, Michelle, are you?
I'm happy to wait to see what else has been suggested.
Pat was in first, and then I'll go to Matthew.
Just a couple of issues coming in on Shane's point there. I just wanted to ask about the frequency of meetings of this committee. There seem to be every few months or something at the minute, is it?
And it's not set. It's basically as and when it needs to meet, Chair.
So it's for the committee itself to decide?
No, just with one caveat, that one team supports this committee and 2 other committees, so the team has to juggle. But
well,
the team
taking logistics into account, the committee can decide how often or frequently it meets. Fair enough. And just commenting on Michelle's previous comments, I've been on this committee previously, and I suppose the role of this committee is really to set out options. I mean, this committee itself won't really take any decisions, but what it can do is lay out different options, and then they get passed on to, wherever the decision-making process is going to take place, whether it's on the floor of the Assembly or wherever. So.
Okay, Matthew, and then we're going to try.
Well, I think first of all that's true. It's important to say, acknowledge obviously that there are limitations in terms of the clerk staff's bandwidth and resourcing. I think it is worth saying it's not a political statement, but it's a statement of fact. I think both the First and Deputy First Ministers certainly have said that when the question of preventing collapse, as it were, to use the vernacular, has been introduced, they've said that this committee is the place to discuss that. I think the public will then expect us to discuss that. It's just a very, obvious point. In terms of what we produce, it is right to say that we are effectively going to produce an options paper. We don't have the power to amend the Northern Ireland Act, which is what might be one of the recommendations, or amend Assembly standing orders even. So both of those things will only ever be recommendations that come from us. And of course, as I'm sure it has been the case in the past, it may well be that the committee does not come to an agreed consensus on these things and simply sets out disparate views and disparate recommendations. I hope that doesn't happen. I hope we'd find some agreement, but I don't think that should prevent us from scoping them out.
Okay, so I get the sense of the conversation. What I want to now do is move to decision mode, in particular in relation to this item. So obviously it's been suggested that there would be scoping exercises conducted on whatever the members felt was their prioritisation from the list. So could I take a proposal and then we can move this on? Go on,
I propose then, Chair, and thank you again for your managing it, that we move to, subject to the conversations we've had around the scoping it and the fact that it may also encompass some of the other reflections in that list, number 10. Which is in my name, I think.
We have a proposal
broad.
For number 10.
I second that.
We have a seconder. Do we have any other proposals, Michelle?
Can I propose that we look then at the list that was agreed in conversation with the TEO and scoping those topics for further work as well, please?
Okay. So that is 2 proposals. So I will take the first proposal.
Chair, just on the second proposal, is it specific topics that from the TEO list? Is
that 17 and 19?
The 3 that we discussed that Nick outlined.
So that would have been in the list, which
was
17, 19 and 21.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, members, so we have two proposals, so we...
One procedural question. These two aren't mutually exclusive, so we don't have to support one of these two proposals. No.
Okay, so I'll take the first proposal, which was Matthew's. So could I have all those in favour of Matthew's proposal, which is in relation to number 10? So we have... I'm just checking our online participants, if you could show yourselves, reveal yourself. So Matthew, Pat, Michelle, and I'm not getting any other indication.
I'm voting as well, Chair.
Okay, so that's Anya. Okay, yeah. And those against? Michelle, myself, and Gary.
Yeah. Okay, Chair. So the proposal passes on a vote of 4-3, and there are no abstentions. So those in favour: Pat Sheehan, Anya Murphy, Michelle Guy, and Matthew O'Toole. And those opposed are Jonathan Buckley, Michelle McElveen, and Gary Middleton.
Okay, so that proposal passes without notice to go for scoping action. We now take a vote on the second proposal. I'm right on,
Or if there's a vote required,
if there's a vote required, are members content that we also provide further scoping papers on topic 17, which is assembly engagement on cross-cutting executive strategies, and 19, which is handling of Westminster statutory instruments, which include a role for the Assembly, to a future meeting. Are members content? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, content.
Chair, can I just clarify, are we including 21 in that, the all-party group topic as well, or is it just 17 and 19?
Would members like that particular point? So the three, I mentioned two of them. The other one was a review and assessment of effectiveness of all party groups. Were members content for the Secretariat to do a scoping exercise on that as well?
If members are happy, I think, because given the number of all party groups here, and I think obviously there's pressures on time as well, but I think it might be useful maybe just to look at that. But I guess it's not a priority, but it might be something that we may
It
want to
wouldn't
look
be
at.
my top priority, and it
No.
seems to be putting
So
an onerous burden on officials. So
Are we content then just to stick with the two that we suggested? Yes?
Content.
Members content? Okay. Thank you, members. Okay, we will now move to the next agenda item, which is correspondence. I have none. So we'll move to the next item of business, which is any other business. Again, I have none. I haven't been indicated from any other member. Okay, agenda item number 10, which is date, time and place of next meeting. I'll inform members that the committee meeting is scheduled for Tuesday the 11th of March at 9:30 a.m. in room 21, and I adjourn the meeting. Thank you, members.
Committee Room 21. Sound.